Back when I was a kid, I used to have sleepovers with my best friend all the time. His name is Joe, and we remain friends to this day. I'm guessing I was like 10 or 12 at the time. I really don't know exactly what year it was, but I remember that night really well. It was the summertime, and we were having some really nice weather. I went over to Joe's house, along with my older sister. Joe also had an older sister that was my sister's age, and they were also best friends. So all four of us were at Joe and his sister's house, and my sister and I were going to spend the night. For most of the day, Joe and I were outside playing basketball in the driveway. He lived in what I would describe as a pretty typical neighborhood. There were many other houses on the street, and they all had around the same size house and yard. The backyard was not very big, but was fenced in, separating it from his neighbors. There was enough space to play catch and things like that though. I remember that we went inside for a while to eat, and we were playing some video games. Then somebody, I'm not sure who exactly, had the idea to sleep outside in tents. Joe's family went camping sometimes, so they had a few tents in the garage. I know it was either Joe's or my sister who had the idea, and Joe's parents thought it would be really fun as well. Joe and I would probably rather stay in and play video games until we got too tired to stay awake, but we ended up agreeing. We all took 2 tents and set them up probably 50 feet away from each other at the end of Joe's backyard. One was for us, and the other was for our sisters. We took out sleeping bags as well, and then Joe's parents made a campfire. They had a little fire pit, and we roasted marshmallows and made s'mores. When it got late, Joe's parents put out the fire and went inside. Then it was time for us kids to go to bed. Joe and I got inside our tent, and we went into our sleeping bags. I remember we played on our Game Boy Advances for a while. It was really quiet out there. We could hear our sisters talking in the distance from their tent at first. Eventually, they must have went to sleep because things got really quiet. Joe and I were still up though and playing our video games. Then we suddenly heard a noise as if somebody was walking in the yard and approaching our tent. They were walking slowly, but the strange part was that they were coming from the back side of the yard, not from the direction that the house was in. At first, we assumed it was one of our sisters. They were probably trying to scare us. Still, I had a bad feeling about it for some reason. Joe and I whispered to each other, asking if we had heard that. I remember Joe saying that it was his sister confidently, as if he knew that's who it was for sure. But for some reason, I didn't believe him. Then, suddenly, we could see the shadow of who was there. It certainly wasn't his sister. The shadow appeared to be of a grown man. We were both frozen with fear. The shadow got closer until it was right outside of our tent. The guy stood there for the longest time, but didn't open the tent. Then he started walking away. But he was walking closer to the house, or possibly towards our sister's tent. Joe and I moved over to the end of the tent, and we quietly unzipped it to get a look at who was there. I remember that we both stuck our heads out to look. We thought we were being inconspicuous, but apparently we were not. As soon as we saw the guy, he was like 20 feet away, halfway between our tent and our sister's. He immediately started sprinting to the end of the yard and hopped the fence like it was nothing. Neither Joe or me got a good look at the guy's face. He pretty much turned away as soon as he saw us. After that, we all went inside. I felt much more safe in there. I don't think the guy ever came back, but I'm really glad that he left when he did. I remember when I was 8 years old, I got invited to a birthday slumber party. Something really strange happened, and I haven't told anybody about it to this day, so I'm deciding to write about it now. The party was for one of my friends. I wasn't the closest friends with him, but I was certainly in his friend group. We were classmates, and I remember being really excited for the party. It was the first time I would be staying overnight at anybody's house other than my best friend. The party was on a Friday to a Saturday. After school, I went home and then got ready. The party started at 5 p.m. at my friend's house. When I got there were a few of their kids there already, and I knew most of them. A couple of people got there after me, and there was a total of 8 of us. My friend's brother and sister were also there, so it was a pretty large group. I remember that his parents took both of their cars. Half of us piled into one and half into the other. We went to a nearby Pizza Hut and got pizza and soda there. After that, we went back to my friend's house. That's when there was cake and presents and all that stuff. We were all going to be sleeping in the basement. I remember that the house was a split level, so when you walked in, there was a little area and then stairs going both up and down. The basement was a big open space, but had a few connecting rooms. When we all got down there, we had our own sleeping bags and we set them up all over the basement. I put mine near a wall, and I happened to be closest to the stairs. We all started playing video games down there, and I remember they had multiple TVs set up. They had a GameCube going, a Nintendo 64, and somebody even brought a PlayStation. It was a lot of fun, and it went late into the night. Finally, I'm not even sure what time it was, but if I had to guess, it was maybe 2 a.m. The TVs finally went off, and everybody went inside their sleeping bags and fell asleep. Everybody except me, that is. I was laying down with my eyes closed, but was unable to fall asleep. I'm not really sure why, but I just wasn't really that tired. I laid there with my eyes closed for the longest time, and eventually I sat up and looked around. It was dark and completely silent. Everybody else was fast asleep. I kind of had to use the bathroom though, probably from all the Mountain Dew I had been drinking. There was a bathroom in the basement, but I would have to step over multiple people to get to it. Rather than risk waking them up, I had easy access to the stairs, and I decided to use the upstairs bathroom instead. I got up and walked up the first set of stairs into the foyer near the front door. In that area was where everyone left their shoes. There was also a coat closet and a window next to the front door as well. When I got up there, I immediately saw a man's face looking in the window. I was shocked, and I sprinted up the rest of the stairs. Once I was up there, I quickly ran down the hallway and into the bathroom. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I didn't know who the man was looking in the window, but I was certain that he was not supposed to be there. I used the restroom, but before I left, I had to psych myself into going back downstairs. The man might still be looking in, and I did not want to walk past him again. I opened the bathroom door and walked out. I soon made it to the top of the stairs. That's when I heard a quiet knock on the front door. It wasn't loud enough to wake anybody up, but it was certainly loud enough for me to hear it. I was really freaked out now. I waited at the top of the stairs. I stood there for probably 2 or 3 minutes. The guy knocked again. Finally, I made a run for it. I went down the stairs as fast as I could, and I told myself not to look at the window. When I was almost at the bottom of the stairs though, of course, I looked at the window. Nobody was there at first, but then quickly the man appeared again. He was looking right at me. I ran even faster and went all the way down the next set of stairs back into the basement. Everything in the basement was still silent and dark. Everybody was still asleep. The window to outside was just barely out of my view. I was glad that I couldn't see the man. I heard another quiet knock from the front door though. Then I heard the knob to the door turn as if the man was trying to get inside. I had no idea who this guy was or what he was doing. I did my best to fall back asleep, but I still couldn't. By now, I was probably even more awake from seeing the guy than ever. I heard him around the front door, knocking quietly on the door or window or trying to open the door. That lasted for probably 10 or 15 minutes until things finally went quiet again. I was thinking about waking somebody up, and I almost did, but I decided not to. There were a couple of windows in the basement. The basement was only like half underground in the front. These windows had blinds covering them though. But only about 10 minutes after I stopped hearing the noises around the front door, I started hearing a quiet knock at the window. This lasted about 5 minutes before going back to the front door area. I closed my eyes and covered my ears. I did my best not to think about it and to try and fall asleep somehow. Eventually, I did. When I woke up the next morning, it was 8 a.m. and most of the other kids were awake. We all went upstairs and had pancakes for breakfast. Shortly after that, everybody's parents started coming to pick them up. My dad came and picked me up, and I went home. I never told anybody about the man that I had seen. I'm not really sure why I didn't tell anyone, but I just didn't. Soon after, I forgot about it, but over the years I've remembered it, and I think about it time and time again. I still wonder who the guy was and what he was doing. Was he trying to break in, or was he just messing around? I just know that he really scared me that night. My scariest experience at a sleepover happened back when I was 12. I was sleeping over at my friend Jeffrey's house. This was a long time ago, but I still remember it well. I would stay over at Jeffrey's house all the time. We would usually play video games until we got tired and then go to sleep. The nice thing was that Jeffrey had a bunk bed, so I didn't have to bring a sleeping bag or anything. I would sleep on the bottom bunk, and he would always sleep on the top. I'm not really sure why he had a bunk bed, because he didn't have any siblings, but I think he just wanted one because he thought it was cool. Anyways, on this particular night, we were playing on Jeffrey's Xbox 360. There was this game called Banjo-Kazooie that we always liked to play back then, and I remember we played that game late into the night. We were having popcorn, and that's when I remember that Jeffrey said he thought he heard a noise. I hadn't heard anything though. He asked me if I had heard what he did, and I said no. He then paused the game, so I knew he was serious. We both listened. Then I did hear something. It was coming from outside, just past the bedroom window. There was a large bush, and it was moving. He had shades covering most of the window, but there was a small opening. We thought maybe an animal was there at first. However, the way the movements and sounds were, it seemed more like a person. We both went to the window and looked out, but didn't see anything. We looked out there for a good 2 or 3 minutes. After that, we went back to playing video games. At that time, it was just past midnight. We played the game for about 5 more minutes before hearing the bush move again. We paused the game once more and listened. Then, we both saw somebody walk past the window. We saw it clearly through the maybe foot-tall gap in the blinds covering the window. Jeffrey got up and closed the blinds completely. He then said to me, "Did you see that?" I told him yes. We didn't get a good look at whoever the guy was at all. We couldn't see his face or anything like that. Still, we knew that somebody was there, and we knew that nobody was supposed to be there. Jeffrey's neighborhood was pretty typical. There was a decent amount of houses on his street, and the yards had a little bit of space. Stuff like this never happened though. I asked him what we should do. By this time, Jeffrey's parents had long gone to bed. All of the rest of the lights in the house were out, and it was completely quiet. Just a small lamp in the corner of Jeffrey's bedroom was the only light. Jeffrey then went over and turned it off. Now the only light was coming from the TV screen. We decided that we were going to be quiet and listen to see if the guy would come back. After a couple of minutes of nothing, we got up to investigate the rest of the house. We walked slowly and as quietly as we could. We went out into the hallway and down to the living room. Then we looked out the windows there. We still didn't see anything. Even into the kitchen, and looked out just about every window of the house. Of course, we couldn't see everywhere, but we didn't see the guy at all. But we felt better and thought that maybe whoever had been there had left. Then we quietly walked back up to Jeffrey's bedroom again. We decided that we would go back to playing our video games. But right as we unpaused the game, we heard the sound of glass breaking. It was coming from the complete opposite end of the house. Jeffrey got up and closed his door quickly. He then said to hide. We both ran to his bunk bed and hid underneath it. There was enough space under there for both of us to fit, and we covered the side with blankets. We first heard some noises in the house, but stopped hearing anything a short time later. The good news is that whoever was in the house was not walking closer to us. Still, we weren't sure what to do. We didn't have cell phones, and the nearest home phone was in Jeffrey's parents' bedroom. After hiding under the bed for a good 5 minutes, Jeffrey said he was going to make a run for it to wake his parents up. He told me to wait there and keep hiding. 2 of us going in there would cause more noise, he said. He quietly got up and went to the door. We knew that opening the door would be the toughest part, and when Jeffrey opened it, I was half expecting to see the man right there on the other side. But thankfully, he wasn't. We didn't see the man, and Jeffrey quickly snuck down the hall into his parents' bedroom, which was really close by. Unfortunately for me, Jeffrey didn't come back right away, and I had to wait in his bedroom by myself. I was scared out of my mind. If the door opened, I wouldn't know if it would be Jeffrey again or whoever else was in the house. I didn't really hear any noises though. I waited there, hidden under the bed, for probably 10 whole minutes. Then, the door suddenly opened. I didn't want to look. A few seconds later though, the covers moved right by my face. I looked, and it was Jeffrey. He told me that the police were now there. Then, I was able to get out from under the bed. I was surprised that I had heard nothing, but the police were in fact there. They were able to locate the man in the house, and he had actually gone down into the basement and was hiding in there. He broke in through the back kitchen window, which was pretty big. Looking back at that night, I'm really glad that Jeffrey and I had stayed up playing video games so late. If not, we probably wouldn't have heard the guy break in. I went to Jeffrey's house many times after that. We always talk about that from time to time, and I'm glad everyone is okay.